It is good to be back on Cappers Direct and their YouTube page. Hey, everybody, TJ DeSantis. And I'm with the man, the myth, the legend. It is the one and only Mr. Bruce Buffer. Bruce, I'm surprised you're whole after that trip to Abu Dhabi. It looked incredibly warm. Like, I can't even say it looked hot. Hot is an understatement. How did it feel
Yeah,
over there?
yeah, that is a bit of an understatement, and basically the word we got when I got there, I'm like, holy hell, this is holy hell.
Right, right.
It's a beautiful city. It's incredible. The people are great. I mean, it's an amazing place to visit. There's no question.
Sure.
But when I walked out, that it was 116 degrees outside the hotel.
Man.
So we get in the air conditioned comfort of the van taking us to the show, and then I get to the show. And yes, they built the stadium. They did a great job of it. But the bathrooms were like a mile, it seemed, away. The air conditioning in the arena was not exactly what I would call the best air conditioning, but, definitely gave a good shot. But I think it was 100 degrees in that arena. No question. I probably lost about 4 pounds of water weight that night just through my tuxedo.
Yeah, they said on the broadcast, John Anik and Dominic Cruz, it almost felt like a weather broadcast, like a forecast, because they had the actual temperature inside of the arena on the screen, which was like 96. And then they said that the heat index equated to something like 120 degrees. And that is crazy. And also, too, even if people just watch the main card, Bruce, they think, oh, okay, it's not that bad. It's, a 2 or 3 hour event. No, like the UFC is like a 7-hour affair for you. I'm surprised you didn't need to get an IV when it was all said and done.
I thought about it, but the bottom line is when I'm working, I prepare for this kind of stuff when it's going to be those kind of conditions, because we've had some pretty radical conditions down at some of the Brazilian arenas in the cities we've worked in. For me personally, I know that your body needs nourishment, especially over 7, 8 hours of activity. And to do that, obviously, it's plenty of water. I keep honey on the table. I have a couple of bananas on the table. And I have a good, bountiful breakfast and lunch before the show, because basically the bottom line is we have to look forward to not being able to eat or drink properly for 7 or 8 hours, much less in this case a bathroom break, which you do need a pee break at least once or twice a show potentially. But I had to time it because John Anik and I in the beginning of the show where I tested it, I walked it, I timed, said, John, we need 5 to 7 minutes to take a pee.
Wow.
And you really got to find that spot,
Right.
and it's like that spot in a night of UFC is right after an early knockout or submission when the fighters aren't waiting at the what do you call it? The drapes, the gated area ready to come out. And then I got to be ready to go in and do my thing. So look, it's not the worst thing. I'm not fighting. The guys are fighting. We're doing our thing. But, bottom line, it is our job. And we got to coordinate properly.
Well, it's a hell of a job to have because it was a fantastic night of fights.
Yeah.
And let's start with the main event. Habib Nurmagomedov does what he does best, and that's taking out another top-shelf opponent. He pushes his record to 28-0. When I hear people talk about the greatest of all time, it's a label that gets thrown around quite a bit in mixed martial arts, and it's very rare that it's thrown upon someone who has an undefeated record. Now, I know it's just a technicality with John Jones. John Jones technically has a loss, but the bottom line is the O is gone and will never be brought back.
Right.
Habib Nurmagomedov, Bruce, I mean, he's flawless. He's perfect. 28-0. And what's even more impressive, I think, about that, Bruce, is the fact that he's done it in the lightweight division. One of the, most difficult divisions to not only just, get to the UFC at, but stick around and dominate at. I mean,
Absolutely.
We can stay here all day and make arguments for our favorite, fighters and goats and the what could be in the future for, up and coming fighters. But the bottom line is right now, I kind of think Nurmagomedov uses that O in that loss column to sort of, supersede everybody in front of him.
Well, I agree. And, I'm the one that'll pick up on myself when I'm about to say is I'm the one that's always said there will never be an undefeated fighter in the octagon. Quite frankly, Habib Nurmagomedov looks like he could be the first undefeated fighter potentially when he retires in the octagon. The man is in what seems to be an unstoppable force. He's got the greatest base for MMA known, which is wrestling, in my opinion, and he's dynamite at it. He's just a beast. He's the eagle, but he's also the beast.
Right.
And extremely respectable. I got to tell you, the one thing after the little incidents that we've been through recently and the media fanfare with Conor McGregor and, and when Conor fought Habib and all that, me better than most people, TJ, and his acceptance speech at the end and the respect factor to Poirier and, I just thought I like had tears in my eyes to a degree because I thought really is what we're truly all about. And it was such a monumental moment in the UFC's history with this great event that we had. But at the same time, the role model status was there. I loved it. I relished it. And I thought it was great. Just no negatives, just so positive.
Yeah.
Blood, sweat, tears, and honor. And that's what he's all about.
I'm going to be honest, Bruce. He leapt over the octagon wall and basically jumped in the arms of UFC President Dana White. And I had flashbacks. To Vegas and thought that maybe Dylan Dennis was going to be at the bottom of his legs there. But no, it was a great way to sort of, I think, erase those memories. And, Habib had to pay for his mistake, last year. And, $500,000 fine. That's no small amount of money to anyone. I don't care if you have millions of dollars, but I think this was kind of the full repentance, I think, for Habib to come out there, do what he does best, and then just get on the microphone and be a class act.
Totally. And when he did jump the fence, for that split second in my mind, I thought, oh boy, here we go again. But I thought, where are we going with this? Where's he going?
Yeah.
Now, when he jumped over and Dana got in the octagon, and Dana and I are like, wow, what a night, like we normally do when we see each other at the end of the night in the octagon. And Dana says, look at his feet. And I looked at Habib's feet, and they're all cut up, right? Because when he jumped out of the octagon, people were stepping on his feet, and they're cutting him.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, you're right, Dana. And I said, well, hopefully it doesn't hurt. He goes, well, it's going to hurt tomorrow. I mean, his feet were a little mangled.
Right.
But that's the price you pay, And I guess Habib, look, he's the eagle. They got a sore. What can I tell you?
Right.
It was what it was, but it was positive.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And one of the coolest things that I think I've seen ever in the octagon is the fact that Dustin Poirier and Habib Nurmagomedov, they embrace and they trade, Reebok shirts. It's great to show sort of the respect that Nurmagomedov did getting, interviewed by John Anik while wearing a Dustin the Diamond Poirier shirt. I mean, you can go back in the annals of UFC history, and when a fighter usually goes to run and get a shirt on quickly for their post-fight interview, generally it's Tito Ortiz with a nasty message, on the back written about Guy Mesger or something like that. But again, not the case with Nurmagomedov, and I think the way that he sort of handled himself, Bruce, post-fight, really kind of. I mean, I don't want to say that all is forgotten, forgiven, but I'm going to remember this much more than I am the Conor McGregor sort of situation, years to come. It's going to be a black eye, don't get me wrong, but with this, T-shirt exchange, like, come on, man, that's just as memorable in a lot of ways.
You're going to remember it because what you saw, and I'll be repetitive here, is exactly what we are supposed to be and what we are, and that's what true martial artists are. It's all about respect.
Right.
You go to war, you respect. When I was a kid, when we used to fight, we'd have a drink afterwards or whatever. Respect. Yeah, sure. My face got popped. Your face got popped. We're done. We did it. Let's respect each other. Okay. I am so excited that you pick up on that and you're speaking about it the way you are, because this is the kind of publicity and this is the kind of positive fanfare that the great athletes and warriors that step into the octagon should be sharing and expressing to the world.
Right.
In this day and age, shit sells. We all know that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm not about shit. You're not about shit. I'm about class and honor, but we're going to get both. Therefore, with things that have happened recently, without going into names and instances, I am so happy to see this because I know Habib to the point that he is one of the most respectful, coolest cats I've ever met in the UFC. And I have nothing bad to say about Habib Nurmagomedov, only positive things. Thank you, Habib, for showing the world what we're truly all about. And Dustin Poirier, let's face it, his family, his life, his background, a true MMA role model, mixed martial artist, even in loss and even in defeat. And again, this is what we're supposed to be truly all about.
Right.
And it still sells tickets.
Right.
Okay?
No doubt about it. And one thing, I'm happy that you brought up, selling tickets, because the arena over there in Abu Dhabi, it was packed despite the heat. I'm sure it was, probably 20 degrees warmer in there just because of all the bodies that were in there. But one thing that I noticed on the broadcast, Bruce, and I've never really seen this or felt this or heard this through the television in my 15 plus years of watching MMA, and that was every time Nurmagomedov shot for a double leg takedown, the crowd popped like Anderson Silva just threw a flying knee. And it's not often in mixed martial arts you see the crowd really appreciate that grappling game and the attempt to get the fight to the floor. But when Nurmagomedov shoots, it very much is like Anderson Silva throwing some sort of Matrix style type of kick. The fans are into it just as much as any other technique.
Absolutely. And one of the key reasons for that is the region in which we held the event. Now, this event, I'll explain what I mean by that. This event, the octagon size seats, if I'm not mistaken, were very expensive, like over $2,000, right? Yeah. The whole show sold out in minutes, not hours, in minutes. Now, in 1998 or 7, was my first visit to Abu Dhabi out of the 4 times I've been there for the ADC Submission Wrestling Championships put on by Sheikh Tanoon, who eventually became a 10% owner in the UFC many years ago. And that continued to become a worldwide international event. And I went back there and did it again a couple years later. They love grappling, which has been authorized and legal in the country of the Emirates before MMA was made legal.
Right.
We also have the Russian end and all the areas around. Wrestling and grappling is huge back there. Yep. Therefore, you have a lot of true, really good fans. You mix that with the punching, the kicking, and the elbows and everything we throw in mixed martial arts, and you got a lot of excited fans. So you had true fans that knew the sport that were out there that night.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now let's talk about Habib and maybe his next move. A lot of signs point to Tony Ferguson. It's a fight that has been, attempted to be made time and time.
Don't you want to ask me who I want him to fight? Don't you want to ask me who I?
You know what? I'm going to ask you, but I think I'm stirring the pot here, Bruce, because it was brought up over the last couple of days, a name that wasn't Tony Ferguson, and I hate to say it, but I'm like, I kind of want to see that over Tony, and that's George St. Pierre. I feel like if George can make 155 pounds, and it's a fight that Habib definitely wants, it's hard not to, kind of put George to the front of the line because, God forbid something were to happen where we weren't able to get George to come back out of retirement down the road should, Habib lose, or maybe George just loses that itch. But if George is on board, it's hard to say that George would, beat out or that Tony Ferguson would beat out GSP in getting a fight with Habib Nurmagomedov.
Well, if you were to ask me and, you'd put the words in my mouth by saying it, but yes, GSP. When I heard the possibility of that, when I heard Dana mention that night, I got very excited because you get back to the old adage that to become a legend, you need to beat a legend, right? Well, what better thing than potentially who is considered by many now, but seriously, when he hits 30 undefeated fights, he will be, in my opinion, the greatest of all time. And I just hope he doesn't retire soon, but I certainly understand if he does. Okay. Right. You have George St. Pierre, who walking, living, breathing is one of the greatest of all time. What a fight that would be. Huge money for both. Huge. I mean, it's huge. One of the biggest pay-per-views ever between two people that are two of the most respectful mixed martial arts UFC warriors ever. It just has success written all over it. With that being said, yes, Tony deserves the shot.
Sure.
Yes, I'd like to see him have it. I like Tony. I want to see him fulfill his career. I don't mean to say he shouldn't get it, but the excitement level, with all respect to Tony, when I think Tony Ferguson, Habib Nurmagomedov, and when I think GSP, Habib Nurmagomedov, great fight over here. Oh, my God. Super, super, super fight. And look, this isn't the fight business. It's also show business.
Right. And
these are what goes on in the minds of the powers that be. So we'll see what happens. I'm not the powers that be. I'm the media mercenary. They point, I shoot. But you know what? I can't wait to get in the octagon for that fight. Hopefully I won't blow another ACL with George in because it happens, but we'll see.
It's funny because I look at this and I look, what it's the climate in mixed martial arts is like right now. And a lot of people say, oh, there's more MMA than ever. It's not as special as it used to be. There's oversaturation. But when I think about this, Bruce, I can't think of another potential fight that would be bigger and better when it comes to all-time greats than Nurmagomedov and George St. Pierre. And what's even sort of the silver lining? If we don't get that, if for whatever reason it doesn't come to fruition, Tony Ferguson versus Habib Nurmagomedov, that's a hell of a consolation prize. Oh, you know what I mean?
It's huge. It's a win-win situation with obviously potentially, with all respect to everybody involved, a bigger win when the name GSP is attached to it. What we have here in GSP is, I know from, I'm not going to say how, why, what, where. GSP is one of the fighters who is very well off. He's taking care of himself. He saved his money.
Right. I mean, we're talking about the first mixed martial artist that had a Gatorade endorsement, Under Armour. Like this guy, he was kind of the first corporate darling, I would say, of mixed martial arts. And that's a hard industry to break into in combat sports, period, let alone sort of the, stepchild of boxing for the longest time in MMA.
Right. Well, with that being said, then you have to realize that as comfortable as he is, then he has to be really motivated to step back in the octagon.
Certainly.
And the motivation with George St. Pierre is not just a big paycheck. George St. Pierre is about his legacy,
Yeah.
what he wants, where he wants to be. And if he's going to step in, then you know for sure that this is going to be a very exciting fight, and he's there to win, as Habib is every time he steps in. You know what? We're just painting the picture that this would be incredible.
Right.
And then other people are saying, like, I read where Conor was saying he wants to fight Dustin Poirier. I don't see any reason for that fight. Some people say Conor should have a chance to fight, for the championship again. I mean, let's face it, Habib beat him very strongly. It's not like we're dying to see a rematch. And Habib's already said it's not going to happen. He'd like to see, if it does happen, that he wants Conor to prove himself, that he deserves it. I do agree with Habib. Conor is one of the top 10 rated fighters out there, but he hasn't been in the octagon in 2 years or whatever the case might be. So what's fair? Giving George St. Pierre a shot at Habib Nurmagomedov, or letting Conor jump to the front of the list?
Yeah,
but again, it's show business.
Right. And I would like to think that people are smart enough to know that George St. Pierre and Conor McGregor, they're much different when it comes to, deserving a fight with Nurmagomedov. They're similar in appeal when you want to talk about like what fight is going to make the most amount of money. But when I think you think about legacy and bring that in, I would hope that most people would go, you know what? Conor needs to win another fight. George would deserve it more than Conor. And I mean, if Conor gets it and Tony Ferguson doesn't, I mean, then I think all hells might break loose from some of the hardcore fans, but you never know.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen because Habib and Ali have already said it's not going to happen. And I think that if they say it's not going to happen.
Until the check's on the table, though, you know what I mean? Like you said, it's show business, and, sometimes money will beat out, merit, but I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor fight. It would be a smart fight, I guess, in the sense if you're trying to build up Conor to maybe get back to title contention. He already owns a win over Dustin Poirier, but it was so long ago that, I mean, I don't feel super comfortable saying that McGregor would, just definitely beat Poirier, not to mention that it's a different weight class. But
Poirier's a different fighter now than he was.
Yeah, and Poirier, I know he took this fight really hard coming up short, but I mean, he's far from being past his prime or anything like that. I mean, Poirier's going to go on and beat top shelf opponents and find himself, back in this sort of title picture again relatively quickly, I would think.
He needs time to recollect. I mean, he just went through the biggest fight of his life. It was a big emotional loss for him. I mean, I could tell that just by how he was acting in the octagon when I get in after the fight was over. And I know Dustin to a point, as well as I said earlier, his family. They live with honor. They live with pride, and he's going to make the right decision. But like any fighter out of a war like this and 8 weeks of training and all the buildup, give him I made it a habit not to listen to fighters after I listen to them for what they had to say because I'm always interested.
Yeah, you
but I
take it with a
realized
grain of salt.
Yeah, those decisions can change within a week. I mean, they just took punches for 25 minutes or less. It's like, give a chance to regroup.
Right.
Think your career.
Yeah, no doubt about it. One other fight I'd like to hit before we sort of wrap things up is the co-main event, Edson Barboza and Paul Felder, in a fight that, I mean, this was one of those fights, Bruce, I actually said going into it, I think it may fail to live up to the expectations because on paper, it's such a good fight. It's a rematch. Both of these guys know each other. Oftentimes when you have a rematch, there's a lot of respect built in, and it causes fighters to not be, as aggressive as if they were fighting someone for the first time. And that just wasn't the case. I mean, Paul Felder was bleeding in this fight, 45 seconds into it, and there was a nasty headbutt, and ultimately Felder evens the score, getting his hand raised in a very, very close and competitive fight. But if you said, hey, point me to a fight to show a new fan in 2019 what mixed martial arts is all about, I think I'm pointing to Felder and Barboza.
Yeah, it's kind of like back when UFC 33 and a half happened, and Robbie Lawler fought that great fight, and it was just an amazing fight, banging each other silly. This fight had a lot of drama to it, a lot of buildup, and a tremendous amount of skill. But when they butted heads twice, not just once, Felder had the cut above the eye, bleeding into his eye. He's getting with that. He had the other cut on the forehead. His nose gets broken in the first round. My God. I mean, listen, Paul is one of my favorite people in this sport. He's so much fun. We've become friends. He's excellent at commentating. He's a trained actor. He's putting that into his work as a commentator. And he is a true warrior who's built like sinewy steel, from my brotherly city of Philadelphia. So we have a lot in common. But aside from all that, that fight I could have said Edson Barboza because it was one of those fights that could have gone either way. I was a little surprised at the 30-27 I saw on one of the judges' cards.
Yeah.
Because it was so close. But, like Dana says, don't let it go to the judges. Paul had his hand raised. Edson Barboza gets more respect even in losses, what happens with great fights when they happen with great fighters, and life moves on. Paul Felder, I don't know how I think he's only getting a 30-day or 60-day suspension for his injuries. He'll be back. He's willing to fight anybody in the top 5 contention rankings.
Right.
I think right now, after being number 10 going in, he's probably going to be ranked number 7, give or take, now.
Well, he beat Barboza, who I think was 5. So if he took Barboza's spot,
6 or 5.
Right, yeah. But, I mean, here's the thing. You said it, too, and he said it in post-fight. He doesn't need to do what he did on Saturday. And while most people, want to fight, fighters want to fight, I don't know if any fighter necessarily wants to step up and volunteer themselves to get, cut in the first 35 seconds of a fight and, just really put themselves through hell. So for Paul Felder to get that win, I think he's definitely earned the opportunity to sit back and sort of let the division flesh itself out. And if I was him or his management, I think he's earned the right to go, look, if your number next to your name isn't 5 or higher, you have no business in the octagon with me right now.
Yeah, I think he has the right to say that. I think he has the right to hold out for good paydays. I think he has the depending what his contract entitles him to.
Right.
I think Paul's in a great position. I think he's in a really good seat right now, and he's smart enough to make that work for him and his manager both. So we'll see. Listen, there's fighters and there's fighters.
Right.
There's Chuck Liddell,
Sure.
and there's others.
Right.
There's Paul Felders, and there's other. They all deserve respect.
No doubt.
But certain fighters stand out. And when you get headbutted in the first round and you taste your own blood and you see your own blood, not many fighters react. Not all fighters will react the way Paul did.
Right.
Okay. So warrior.
Yeah. I mean,
warrior spirit.
Going back to the old school, if you want to talk about Forrest Griffin, Forrest basically said he wouldn't wake up in a fight until he got hit in the face. And Paul Felder, well, I don't know if he's necessarily that way because he's definitely, in the fight from the word go. But I think Paul might feel a little bit let down if he didn't have a fight of the night type of caliber on any given Saturday night. And
listen, he's a pit bull. He goes in there. He's in there to win.
Yeah.
Period.
No doubt about it.
Period.
Paul Felder.
Yeah, I can't say anything else.
Yeah, and Paul Felder's performance, I think, goes to the statement earlier in this segment that we were talking about, Nurmagomedov. It bolsters his talent in what he's done at 155 pounds because this is a tough division. If Paul Felder is the 10th best dude at 155 pounds on that Saturday night, man, I don't want to be anywhere near that division if I'm an active competitor, and it's a great time as a fan.
My dad always told me when I was growing up that in boxing, the middleweight division was that's basically the toughest division because not only are they as fast as the lightweights, but they can knock out people of a heavyweight, type status. And Paul Felder and these guys, when they're not weighing 155, they're walking around at 180, 190,
right.
Cutting that weight down. These are very powerful men.
Right.
And you're right. I mean, that whole division is so thick. It's so deep, and it's just full of people that just want that belt around them.
Right.
They're hungry, really hungry. The UFC is offering us so much entertainment. It's just, it's incredible. There's so many upcoming fighters. It's what keeps me going, TJ. I've been in this business for 24 years. Come February, I'm sure I'll be in another 10 or more years. Why? Because I'm so passionate about it, and I'm a fan first and an announcer second, and I'm just getting provided with so much entertainment to be able to enjoy and be part of. I'm humbled by everything.
He's got the best job in mixed martial arts, Bruce Buffer. Watch him every Saturday pretty much inside the world-famous Octagon. Bruce, always appreciate you joining us here on Cappers Direct.
Thank you very much, TJ. Appreciate it a lot, partner. Thank you.